Ethan Vale sat quietly in the corner of the briefing room, surrounded by dozens of human recruits and alien officers. The multi-species fleet was a place of pride for many, but for him, it was only a chance to escape his past and live a simple life. Others dreamed of glory, but Ethan only wanted peace. He had no wish to stand out or be noticed. That was why he kept his true skills hidden. From a young age, Ethan had been curious about machines. While others played games or studied basic subjects, he took apart old drones and rebuilt them, adding new parts and changing how they worked. When humanity first made contact with alien civilizations, he secretly downloaded alien manuals and learned their languages to study their technology. He never went to any grand academy or joined a guild of engineers, but his understanding grew faster than anyone expected. Still, he never told anyone. Now, as a junior pilot in the human division of the Alliance fleet, Ethan made sure to act average. He performed his duties well but never better than expected. He let others speak, avoided attention, and never touched a system when the engineers were around. Yet, no matter how careful he was, the ship had a way of pulling him in. It began with small problems. A navigation panel flickered late at night, and no engineer was nearby. Ethan casually adjusted the wiring and restored the signal. A cooling pump hummed too loud, and he quietly reset its rhythm before anyone noticed. When the food dispensers broke, he fixed them before the crew even filed a complaint. He worked in silence, leaving no sign except the sudden return of smooth operations. The crew whispered about strange repairs. Someone called it luck, others joked about a ghost engineer. No one suspected Ethan, because he was always the quiet one, the one who seemed too ordinary to notice. That was exactly how he wanted it. But even if no one knew, Ethan felt a strange sense of satisfaction. To him, machines were like puzzles that spoke without words. Where others saw only parts, he saw connections, patterns, and hidden flows. It was almost like listening to music, and each repair was his way of keeping harmony in the ship. One evening, while the ship traveled between star systems, the engines began to shake. The engineers worked for hours, trying to find the cause. They argued over energy readings and control lines, but nothing worked. Ethan stayed in the background, watching quietly. He knew the answer the moment he heard the vibrations. A small stabilizer coil was out of sync. It was something simple, but no one thought to check. Late that night, when the engineers went to rest, Ethan slipped into the engine bay. He opened a panel, adjusted the coil, and tightened a connection. Instantly, the engines purred smoothly again. The next morning, the chief engineer claimed he had solved the problem before leaving, and the others believed him. Ethan smiled faintly, knowing the truth but keeping silent. Days passed like this. Ethan continued to live in shadows, fixing what he could, hiding in plain sight. But deep inside, he wondered how long it would last. Secrets had a way of coming out, especially in a place filled with curious aliens and watchful officers. Then, during a routine patrol near the edge of Allied space, the fleet received news that the Zeratian royal delegation would soon arrive. The Zeratians were one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations, and their leader, Queen Serenia, was known for her sharp mind. She was coming to inspect the fleet before the Grand Alliance ceremony. The human crew buzzed with excitement and nervous energy. Everyone wanted to impress the Queen. Engineers worked overtime, pilots polished their ships, and officers rehearsed their speeches. Ethan, however, only hoped to remain unseen. He told himself he would stay quiet no matter what happened. But fate had other plans. As the day of arrival drew near, strange malfunctions began to spread through the ship. Systems flickered, doors locked at random, and power lines surged without warning. The engineers struggled to keep up, but the problems appeared faster than they could fix them. Ethan found himself working in secret more than ever, repairing one system only to see another fail. For the first time, he felt uneasy. It was almost as if the ship itself was testing him, pushing him closer to being discovered. And with Queen Serenya soon to step aboard, he knew the smallest slip could expose everything he had worked so hard to hide. Ethan told himself again and again that he was just another pilot. But deep down, he knew the truth. He was more than that. And sooner or later, someone else would know too. The day finally came when the Zeratian royal fleet appeared in orbit. Their ships were unlike anything the human recruits had ever seen. They were vast, elegant, and shaped like flowing silver wings across the stars. Their energy fields glowed with calm blue light, and their presence alone filled the humans with awe. Even the most disciplined officers stood straighter, trying not to show their nervousness. At the center of this grand arrival was the royal vessel, a shining starship lined with intricate designs that looked almost alive. On board was Queen Serenya of Zeratia, ruler of one of the oldest known empires. Her name carried weight across the galaxy. Many said she could see through lies with a single glance. Others said she valued truth and skill above titles and power. Ethan watched from the viewing deck along with the other crew members. Everyone whispered about how important this visit was. The grand alliance between humans and Zeratians depended on trust. If things went well, humanity would gain powerful allies and new opportunities. If it went poorly, the humans might be seen as weak and unworthy. Ethan had no wish to be part of any of this. He stood at the back, blending into the crowd. To him, the Queen's visit was just another reason to stay quiet and avoid notice. Yet he could not help but feel a strange curiosity about her. What kind of leader would risk traveling so far to meet a younger species like humanity? The docking ceremony began with music and formal greetings. Officers in fine uniforms lined the halls, saluting as Queen Serenya stepped onto the human flagship. She wore robes of silver and blue, her presence calm yet commanding. Her eyes, sharp and bright, moved across the room, studying everything with quiet interest. When she spoke, her voice was steady and clear. She praised the cooperation between their species and spoke of the hope for a brighter future. Her words carried warmth, but there was also firmness in her tone. She was not here for empty promises. She wanted proof that this alliance was worth her time. The tour of the flagship began soon after. Engineers showed the ship's systems, pilots spoke of their training, and officers explained their strategies. The Queen listened with patience, asking precise questions that made even the most confident officers hesitate. Ethan stayed out of sight, moving only when required, keeping to the shadows like always. Then, without warning, the ship's systems flickered. The lights dimmed, doors locked, and alarms echoed through the halls. A sudden failure in the docking bay trapped several attendants inside, including Queen Serenya herself. Guards rushed forward, engineers scrambled, and officers shouted commands, but the systems refused to respond. Ethan stood frozen among the crew. His heart raced. He knew what was wrong the moment he saw the error codes flashing on the panels. The docking bay's safety overrides had been misaligned. The engineers were trying everything, but they worked too slowly. Time was running out. For a moment, Ethan tried to hold himself back. He told himself to stay quiet, to let the official engineers handle it. But then he thought of the Queen, trapped behind sealed doors, and the crew panicking. If the problem was not solved in seconds, the situation could become a disaster. Before he could stop himself, Ethan moved. He pushed through the crowd, opened a control panel, and began entering commands. His hands moved quickly, faster than the engineers could follow. He bypassed safety locks, realigned the docking systems, and stabilized the energy lines. In less than a minute, the doors unlocked and the bay returned to normal. The crowd gasped. Guards rushed to the Queen's side as the doors slid open. Serenya stepped out calmly, her robes flowing behind her. She looked unharmed, but her eyes were fixed directly on Ethan. The officers praised the engineers, trying to cover the moment, but Serenya's gaze did not move. She had seen him at the panel, seen the speed and confidence of his hands. She walked forward, her presence commanding silence across the hall. "What is your name, human?" she asked. Ethan hesitated. Every part of him wanted to vanish, to sink back into the shadows. But her voice left no room for escape. Slowly, he answered. "Ethan Vale." The Queen studied him with calm interest, her eyes sharp as if she could see the secrets he carried. She gave no praise, no judgment, only a faint smile that felt heavier than any words. Then she turned and continued the tour, leaving whispers behind her. Ethan stood frozen, unsure if he had just saved the day or doomed his quiet life forever. One thing was certain: the Queen had noticed him. And once she noticed something, she did not forget. The incident in the docking bay became the talk of the fleet. Word spread quickly among the humans and the alien officers. Everyone knew the docking system had been failing, yet it was a quiet pilot named Ethan Vale who had restored it in seconds. The engineers were puzzled, the officers confused, and the crew whispered in corners about what had really happened. The official report credited the engineering team, but many had seen Ethan at the panel. Rumors spread like fire. Some said he had only pressed a random button. Others claimed he had hacked the system in a way no one else could. By the time the story reached the alien officers, Ethan had already become a subject of curiosity. Ethan tried to ignore it. He went back to his normal duties, speaking little and keeping to himself. But wherever he went, he felt eyes on him. Some crew members looked impressed, others suspicious. He hated attention more than anything. He told himself it would fade, that people would soon forget. But Queen Serenya did not forget. She requested a private meeting with the engineering guild the next day. The chamber was filled with senior engineers from both the human side and the Zeratian side. Ethan had no reason to be there, yet his name was spoken. Serenya asked for the one called Ethan Vale to step forward. Ethan froze when the summons reached him. He thought of refusing, but refusal to a queen was not an option. With heavy steps, he entered the chamber. The eyes of officers, engineers, and nobles turned to him. Serenya stood at the far end, her silver and blue robes catching the light. She regarded him calmly, as if studying a puzzle. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "I saw you restore the docking bay controls," she said. "The engineers struggled for minutes, yet you completed it in moments. Tell me, human, how did you know what to do?" Ethan's throat felt dry. Dozens of eyes watched him. He wanted to say nothing, but silence would only make things worse. At last, he spoke softly. It was simple pattern recognition. The system was locked because the override lines were out of sync. I just realigned them. The engineers exchanged confused looks. To them, it was not simple. The Zeratian codes were complex, and no human was supposed to understand them. Serenya tilted her head slightly. And where did you learn to read Zeratian codes? Ethan hesitated. He could not say he had studied them secretly for years, stealing bits of information from old archives and discarded data chips. That would raise more questions. So he gave the only answer he could. I was lucky. The Queen's eyes narrowed. She did not argue, but her silence said more than words. After the meeting ended, Ethan hurried out, hoping the matter would fade. But fate did not allow him peace. That very night, the ship's energy reactor began to fail. The alarms blared through the corridors, and engineers rushed to stop the rising power surge. The reactor was ancient, borrowed from alien design, and even the best minds struggled to stabilize it. Ethan tried to stay away. He told himself it was not his problem. Yet as he watched the engineers panic, he saw the flaw immediately. A small feedback loop had formed in the control array. Left unchecked, it would cause a chain reaction that could damage half the ship. His heart pounded. If he stepped in again, he would expose himself further. But if he stayed silent, the ship could suffer heavy damage. In the end, his choice was clear. He stepped forward, moved past the shouting officers, and opened the control interface. His fingers flew across the panel. He bypassed alien safety locks, redirected the energy, and reset the array. The reactor's humming calmed, the alarms fell silent, and the danger was gone. When Ethan turned, the crowd of engineers stared at him in shock. Before anyone could speak, a calm voice filled the chamber. This confirms what I already knew, Queen Serenya said as she entered. She had come quietly, watching from the shadows. Now she stepped forward, her gaze locked on Ethan. The hall fell silent as she raised her hand toward him. Her voice carried strength and certainty. This human is my engineer. Gasps filled the chamber. Officers looked at each other in disbelief. The engineers murmured with anger and confusion. But Serenya's expression never wavered. She had seen enough, and her decision was final. Ethan stood frozen, his secret exposed before the entire fleet. He had wanted a quiet life, but now the Queen herself had claimed him. From this moment on, nothing would ever be the same. The words of Queen Serenya echoed across the chamber. This human is my engineer. It was more than a statement. It was a declaration. The humans and the Zeratians both understood the meaning. By naming Ethan as her engineer, the Queen was not only praising him, she was claiming him. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. The human officers looked at one another with disbelief. Some felt pride that one of their kind had caught the Queen's attention. Others felt concern. Why should the Queen of an ancient empire choose a human who had no official title or training? The Zeratian engineers looked the most offended. For them, engineering was not only a science but also a tradition. Generations of study and honor defined their guild. To see a young human, unknown and untrained, raised above them was an insult they could not easily forgive. Ethan, standing at the center of it all, wished the ground would open beneath his feet. He had never wanted this. He had never asked for recognition or titles. His plan had always been to remain in the shadows, to do his work quietly without anyone noticing. Yet here he was, declared before everyone as the personal engineer of the Queen herself. The council chamber grew restless. One human officer finally spoke. With respect, Your Majesty, Ethan Vale is a junior pilot. He has not gone through any guild exams or certifications. Surely you do not mean to place him above trained specialists. Serenya's gaze moved calmly to the officer. Her voice was soft but firm. I mean exactly what I say. Skill is not measured by titles. This human has shown knowledge and creativity beyond the limits of others. That is what matters. Her words silenced the chamber, but the discontent did not vanish. Ethan felt the weight of every stare pressing against him. He wanted to speak, to tell them that he did not deserve such attention, but the words would not come. Later, as the meeting ended, Ethan slipped out quickly, hoping to escape the storm. But whispers followed him through the corridors. Some humans nodded at him with pride. Others looked at him with suspicion. Alien engineers turned away in cold silence. It was clear that his life on the fleet had changed forever. That night, Ethan sat alone in his small cabin. His mind was a storm of thoughts. He remembered the years he had spent